name is Jellum. I'm product manager for Aruba Central, specifically the AIOps component of it. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's just jump in. So a little bit about Aruba Central. Aruba Central is a cloud-based solution. We started in the cloud. We've been in cloud for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years. I can't remember. And AIOps has evolved into that. But as a cloud-based solution, it's actually a fairly complete solution. It's a single pane of glass. It's kind of the nature of a cloud-based solution. We have multiple implementation options. So we can do as a service. We can do an on-prem solution. But the primary feature and the strength is in the cloud. The cloud, it gives you a lot of advantages just because of its scale and capabilities. So we are a full stack, so we cover access points, switches, gateways. We look at all of that in the AIOps world to try to figure out what's going on with that and make that things better for everybody. We are also have built-in security. Security is key to us. It's ground zero. We need to make sure everything's secure. So that should be no surprise to any of you. The real power of this is AIOps. And like I said, we rolled out AIOps into Aruba Central about 3 years ago based on our network insight platform, which has been around 6 or 7 years. We have a huge data science team behind that. We have tons of information. With AI, volume is key, so we have lots of really high quality data we've been gathering for years. So we can do a lot of modeling based on that. All of that, the point of AI is to try to automate things. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, so I don't drill into that right now. And then we're extensible. We're cloud-based microservice architecture, APIs for everything. It's what you would expect from a modern network operation. So Aruba's vision for AI is really to automate everything. My goal as a product manager is to build a product that you don't ever have to touch and that the users have an excellent experience and there's friction. It's frictionless for the IT person. That's the goal. It's a journey we're on. We're not there. We're various places on that journey, but the goal is you should have a smart network that does smart things for you. Saves you time, saves you money, automates as much as possible. So that's where we're going. So what I'm going to talk about today is AIOps, and the pieces of AIOps, there's really 5 components that we consider AIOps. One is client insights, and Ziad, my coworker, is going to talk about client insights in detail, so I'm not going to go into much detail on that. The other is we try to make things simple. So AI search is the key. It's a natural language search engine. We've done a lot of things to make it very quick to get where you want to go. It's subtle. The point of UX is to be unknown, and we've done a pretty good job of UX. So you can ask simple questions. You can get to where you want to very quickly with a very powerful search engine, natural language search engine in the back end. So it's very sophisticated, but you would never know it because it's so simple. The other piece that I'm going to talk a little about, it's going to incorporate into network operations, is AI Assist. AI Assist is it's not a product per se, it's a way of gathering information when the information is necessary. So, for example, when you have a problem, the AI Assist kicks off, it gathers all the information around that problem. Now again, hopefully you'll never need to do that because the goal of AIOps is to look at that, analyze it, root cause it, solve it for you. But we're not there yet. So AI Assist is a key point. And this is a very powerful tool for us because we can do whatever kind of model we want, whatever recipe we want, for whatever problem we can say, this is the recipe of what we want to gather, go gather that information. So you see a lot more of that coming in the future. It's built into the product today with some basic features, but that's going to be a real powerful engine going forward. So the other thing is, so I talked about what we consider AIOps as AI and network insights, which I'm going to spend most of my time on, so I'll dig into that a little bit. AI search, AI assist, client insights, talk about it. And then a cousin, not a redheaded stepchild, but a cousin of ours is UXI. So the user experience engine. So we're on the road. We've got it integrated with Central right now. It's still a standalone product. It's still a viable product for other non-Aruba networks. So we want to keep it that way. But we're bringing it in, so we're going to aggregate all of the information from that with us so we can have a much better user experience and much more insights with it. They have their own AI engine. Our data scientists are talking, we're sharing the data lakes so we can do a lot of really powerful stuff. So licensing. So everything we're going to show you today is part of what we call the foundation license, right? So we have a ton of stuff in the foundation license. The advanced license has, think of it this way, we charge more for things that cost us more, right? So most of what we're giving you in the foundation license is far superior to what most people give in their basic license. We give you a lot of power. So everything we're going to show you, AI, network insights, client insights, AI search, AI assist, that's all part of the foundation license. There are certain parts of network insights which are advanced, there's a label on them, but today we do not enforce that. So even if you have a foundation license, you're still getting advanced features in network insights.
I'm sorry, is this a license that is attached to an AP and a switch, or is this an AIOps SKU foundation license?
You buy a foundation license based on AP switches and gateways, and you get everything.
So it's a per device uptick, if you will, for the foundation or for the advanced.
Correct.
Understood.
Correct. We tried to simplify it, right? We don't want to have you, and there are certain things that you will pay separately, like UXI. It's a separate product, so it's a separate license, right? But everything we're going to show you today is part of the foundation license, but you buy on a per device basis.
Thank you.
So, to get into network insights, there are two different types of network insights that we really want to consider. One is the reactive. This is the normal troubleshooting mode. Somebody calls me, I've got a problem, I've got to fix it. Something's down, I've got to fix it, right? So that's very reactive. That's very disruptive. It changes your day. You know, we have some research. I didn't bring you the slide. I didn't want to bore you with it, but you know, about 50% of an IT person's time is on reactive tasks. So they can't really plan that. They can set aside part of that day, but they don't know what that's going to look like. The other part is what we want to do is the proactive side, and this is going to be the real power of AIOps, is take the proactive side, detect things before they happen, head them off so they don't become a reactive problem, right? That's the goal. Again, we're on a journey. We're not there. We can show you some examples of that. We've done a lot of proof cases of what we're doing, but we're building this out. So some of the examples of the proactive, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the proactive today because the reactive is the kind of the cool stuff, but you know, optimizing transmit power, detecting coverage holes, figuring out what channels to use. I mean, these are kind of basic things, but there's some intelligence there that is really necessary. You know, to be able to figure out which channels to use, you have to know what channels your clients can use. So that's one of the values of having a client-side detector to say, hey, your clients want to use this channel, but this channel, or you want to use this channel, but that channel's not available. Yeah.
I really love the idea of a client-side detector. I haven't heard of that before.
So it used to be part of ClearPass Device Insights. We brought that over into Central. Ziad's going to spend half of the time talking about it, so you'll get a lot of details on it. One of my goals over the last 3 years is figure out, what do we need to do to solve a problem? You as network engineers, you know how to troubleshoot problems. There's a flow chart you tend to follow, but as you get more experience, you kind of skip steps, which is fine because you can narrow things down. With AIOps, we need to make sure that we have all bases covered, right? So the first thing you have to do is reliably detect the problem, right? So in many network systems, you can set a threshold, and if that threshold exceeds, it triggers a problem. That's fraught with disaster, right? You get a lot of false positives or false negatives because if you don't set the threshold correctly, you're not going to get the results you want. And setting that threshold is necessary potentially on a per network basis because every network, as you know, every network is different. Wireless is not the same anywhere. So one of the things we've decided to do is network thresholds are okay for some things, like maybe a noise level or a transmit power level, but even then there's some variability. But we thought it would be better to do dynamic thresholds. So what we call a dynamic threshold is, we used AI/ML over our huge data lake to figure out what the real valuable threshold is. So it's not a set threshold. It's not something we picked out of the air. We did a lot of research and modeling to figure out what an optimal threshold is, and we update that periodically. That's something you don't have to set. But our real value is we have baselines. We have class baselines and we have site baselines. And class baselines are, we're doing an AI/ML model of all the different sites that are under our domain view, and we classify them into similar types of sites. So what does that mean? If you have a big box store, the cookie cutter outlays, right? They have the same floor plan, same APs, same everything, but they're in two different locations. One's in the middle of the field, one's in downtown Manhattan. You're going to have very different network environments. So you wouldn't necessarily want to treat them the same, because how you set things up will necessarily be different because the network is different. The RF is completely different. So those two would be classified in different classes. So you could compare one site, the downtown Manhattan site, to other things that had very similar network characteristics. And we use 17 different classifiers, 17 different attributes to classify these, like AP model, types of clients, noise level. There's lots of different stuff that goes there. And then we put an AI ML model to create 25 different classes of sites, and so you can compare them. And what we do then is we say, okay, here's what's normal with some network expertise guardrails, because normal bad is not good, right? So here's what's normal, and here's how you compare to what the norm is. And if you're significantly outside the norm, we'll trigger an insight and saying, here's what's going on, here's what you need to do.
Does it explain the criteria at that point?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So, my challenge, so I'm a product manager for AIOps. I'm the dumbest guy in the room, right? So I talk to my data scientists, I can't understand it. To be able to explain that is really beyond the purview of what we're trying to do. But if there are interested parties, I can bring the data scientists in, we can go into a deep dive on that stuff. But most people really want something that's just actionable. But to that point, when we get towards the end here, when we automatically solve the problem, we don't necessarily want to show you all the stuff that went into how the sausage is made, but we want to show you the results. So if we solve the problem for you, we'll automatically generate a report of before and after, so you can compare to see what we said we were going to do, we did.
Is there a way to override if in my particular environment the criteria that was used in the background doesn't really apply? It's not an issue, but it's saying it's an issue. Can I say it isn't?
That's an interesting point. So today there's not. We're developing a lot of stuff, and I don't want to talk about futures here. I want to show you what's on the truck today. Today, with everything we do, we do it with a 95% confidence, right? So it's AI, ML, it's mathematics, it's modeling, but there could be some false positives. So again, I don't want to talk about futures, but I will. We will have ways. We will have ways to mute that or to override it,
okay.
Right? But we are very interested in your feedback. We want to know that we did something wrong. So I want to have a feedback loop there. You can say, this didn't meet my needs. Here's what's wrong. And we'll feedback back into the model so we can improve the model. That's the goal.
Excellent.
So anyway, detection's one thing. We want to figure out what the reasons, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that. We want to determine the impact. So just because something was detected doesn't mean it's impactful, right? If it impacted one user at midnight, do I really care? Maybe I care, but is it a high priority? So impact is extremely important. Then we want to do a correlation. If they have 4 or 5 different things triggering at the same time and they're all related, we need to correlate that, right? We need to say, this is really the root cause. With the troubleshooting, this is where AI Assist comes in. We'll trigger off an AI Assist thing, gather the information. And again, this is a journey slide. We're not there with all of the things today, and we're developing that. But we do have a troubleshoot, a solve, and a validate for an insight today. So that was our proof point. We wanted to figure out where we're going, what we needed to do. It was a really hard task to do, and so now we're building it out for the rest of the insights.
I guess the goal is, as you said, is to have, maybe I heard it wrong, but the goal is you don't really want to have, and I understand it, you don't really want to have the end user have to make decisions about what is good or bad. I mean, I know David mentioned about, being able to say, hey, this isn't really a problem for us. But your goal is eventually to say, we're going to automate this for you to, tell you what things are not going well, what things are. And I know this is a future roadmap. It's not a current roadmap. But currently, there's no way to input data into the system and say, look for this event. This is an event I care about, and I want you to tell me that when this event occurs or if it meets this threshold. Is that something that can be, number one, added to the product, and number two, something that can be part of the loop and say, oh, this is something you care about, which is different than this other customer in the cloud cares about? So we're gonna spend extra time on looking for that in your environment.
So you packed a lot in there, but I'll see if I can
Okay.
cover it all. So first of all, we've done this for insights today. This is not some of this is it's a progression of where we're going. So it's not a future roadmap. We're there with some of this today. It's just filling that out. It's making that vertical, right? The second part is, yes, we still have alerts. If you want to go set alert, we have, I don't know, a couple hundred different types of alerts you can set. You can set the threshold, you can set the severity, you can set all of that stuff. That's all there today, where you haven't taken that away. My goal of this, and kind of related to that question, I go and see what people have set alerts for to figure out, do I need to create an insight for them? Because why should you have to create an alert? Right? Ideally, my job is to make it simpler for you. So if you don't have to create an alert, if I can do it for you automatically, hopefully that will be helpful for you. But you can still go and set it manually if you want to, right? But I'm trying to build intelligence on what people care about.
How do you balance that? I like what you're saying in that that's better if the system knew it automatically. How do I know what you're going to do versus what I have to do? There's a trust factor there. Do I put mine in and then wait and then you turn them into insights and then I can turn mine off? So it's kind of a training level that at what point do I trust that I don't need to do this anymore, you've got it?
So two different things. I totally agree. You shouldn't, it's not that you shouldn't, you won't necessarily trust what I'm telling you, right? It's a fact. Network engineers, they like to look at the data, they want to do things for themselves. I got it, been there, done that. So one of the things we want to do is validate. I mean, validation is a key to this, right? I want to show you that and if we solve it for you, I mean, we can tell you what the solution is. We don't have to solve it for you. We can say, here's the solution, and we do this today with our insight. Here's the solution. You can go and implement it if you want to, or you can click the easy button and we'll go do it for you. And if we do it for you, we'll create a report to show you what we did before and after.
I think that's what I was after. How do you train your customers to trust you?
We don't. We
Well, you do. You have to
well,
at some point because the value is that they're not going to do it themselves.
Exactly. Hopefully we don't have to train them. We show them, that we prove that what we're doing is there, right? So maybe that is training. I mean, maybe it's just semantics, right? But I came in and we didn't necessarily do this. And I was like, I don't trust AIML. I don't know what it's doing. I want to see the sausage being made, right?
I really like the validation part because that's the part you go, okay, I don't have to worry about that one anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just going to take time to catch them all.
Exactly. And you know, there's lots of problems. We can only work on so much. So we're getting there. So some of this is reality, some of this is future, but all right. So this is one of our demo systems. So I'm going to show you a few things, right? I'm going to show you AI search. So one of the things we can do is like, what's the user experience today? If we do that, it comes up with all the some of the different clients and the different clients that are in different phases of goodness. So this is AI search, and the smart part about this is you can hover over this and you can quickly see what's going on with the client. You can see this client is having a client timeout. You can click over this client and see there's an authentication server problem. And then we can go and click on this action button to go and look at live events, right? So the scenario here is somebody says they're having a problem. I can go and click on that client, create an active log of what's going on. We stitch all together across APs so we can gather information around this.
So just while it's loading, just a question about the network experience. Is it sorting worst experience to the best? Or when it says your experience, is that a mix of good?
This is a mix. And again, this is a demo system, so there's a lot more here, but it's trying to do some intelligence there, worst to best.
Okay.
So again, everything we're trying to do here is show you the most important thing you should look at, right? We're about, okay, if you only have 10 minutes to look at something and to fix something, this is the thing you should fix, right? I'm trying to save you time. So when I'm doing that, I'm trying to, and this is kind of throughout the UI, is like, this is the thing you should be paying attention to. If you've solved that, then go to the next one, right? That's the intent. This is actually getting the live events from the APs this client's connected to. So this client's sending auth requests, sending association, sending it's all being logged here. So you can see this in real time. You can capture a packet if you want to of there, and you can also download this, so if you want to go and look at this in more detail later on. So this is a live streaming, live debugging thing that's available for all clients. The other thing is that we do have a historical view, so you can go to over, so that's live events. The events tab shows you the historical view of it. In the live events, we characterize it negative, positive, neutral. We give you all the events, and then there's a column in here. You can see the collected data column. If AI Assist is available for that, again, AI Assist is this little piece of code that if there's a problem, we automatically collect the data for that and put it here. So, last night somebody had a problem. I can go here and look at the AI Assist data for that problem. I don't have to go and reproduce that problem. I used to travel around the world with a sniffer and a spectrum analyzer trying to troubleshoot, trying to reproduce problems. I'd walk around for 4 days trying to reproduce something. With this, I don't need to because it's gathering that information. Now, it's not for all problems. We're building that out, but yes.
But for those problems, is that a packet capture or a spectrum capture or both?
It's a packet capture and a log file. So AI Assist, like I said, has a recipe. That recipe can be used to send anything to any device that we want to capture the information. So Aruba's very great about having command lines in the UI for capturing everything. I can't remember all the command lines. The recipe allows us, the experts, to say, hey, this is what we need to collect for this type of problem, so we have all that information necessarily available. I don't know about Spectrum. I'm sorry, I just don't know.
So if there was a problem, you would get a packet capture, you can come back and analyze yourself?
Yep, exactly.
Is it backward looking?
It's for the time of that problem. So as soon as that problem kicks off, the packet capture starts. So there's a ring buffer there. I forget how much I think it's 100 packets.
So if it was a 802.1x issue, but it actually was in the first four-way handshake or something, it has a little buffer behind it.
Yes. And again, I don't know how deep that buffer, but yes, we're trying to capture everything for that problem type. The other thing I want to show, so that's, the other thing is people want to use the UI differently. So, so our UI, admittedly, is a little dated. We're working on that, again, futures, but that's coming soon. Stay tuned. But we have a lot of power in the UI, and it's a little complicated to use because there's so much there. So that's one of the reasons to have this AI search, right? You can go in here and ask things. So think of a scenario where somebody says, hey, I'm having a problem. So that same client, Cimarron, Cimarron calls me and says, hey, I'm having a client, so I can type in Cimarron, and it should come up and say, okay, show me Cimarron, and I hover over it, and look, there's an insight here. I can click on that insight. It will take me to the insight tab for that insight, and it will show me the information around this. Let me just expand this so it's a little bit easier to see. So there's multiple components to this. For this problem, so this is a 802.1 auth failure, right? There are for every problem, there are multiple potential reasons, and for every reason there are multiple potential solutions, and root causes, and for every root cause there's multiple potential solutions. This is my challenge, is to figure out how to map this one error or this one error to multiple solutions. How do I solve that problem? So here we have two different reason types for the auth failures. So the most prevalent one is the timeout. The auth didn't get to the server, so it didn't get a response back, right? So what do I do about that? Well, so that's interesting. This is telling me I've got 100% failures, but it's telling me that it's on one server and one SSID. So I can go and look at that data, and that's narrowed down the troubleshooting I have to do, right? I don't have to go and figure out a lot of details. And that's my goal. Until I can root cause these problems and solve it for you, I'm trying to provide as much information as possible so you spend as little amount of time doing the triage as possible, right?
Would it be possible in the future to have, if this was ClearPass in this scenario, integrated into this so it would know if the request reached the authentication?
Yes. And that's where we're going. Again, I'm trying not to talk about futures, but absolutely, we're trying to integrate not with just ClearPass, but other AAA servers. The goal and the challenge is to consume as much data in the data lake as possible. The challenge is getting all that data in the data lake and get it in a well-formed way, right? So, and as we found, as we consume data, that data is maybe not well-formed, but also maybe not clean. There could be a lot of dirty data, so we have to do a lot of filtering and clean that. So there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes here to make this simple that it takes a long time, and some really smart people to do it. So what else can I show you here? So that's kind of the active part, right? I'm going to show you some of the, so everything I showed you there was on one demo system. This other demo system is just a way we can show all of the insights we have. Actually, we're not even showing all of them. We're only showing 39 of them. And these insights cover RF connectivity, RF in general, client experience, covers access points, switches, and gateways. So we have all of these. And again, our goal is we have all this telemetry. How do we stitch all this stuff together so we can say, this is the root cause? You're having this problem as a client, but it's really because your server over here, your WAN uplink is slow or something. That's where we're going. And we have all the data to do that. This is a better together story. If you have Aruba, we can gather all that telemetry. We have all that telemetry. We can then parse it and figure out what the root cause is. So a couple things I want to show you here. These are, again, these are all on the truck today. These are something that, all of these have been shipping since, well, most of these have been shipping since 2.5.0. Some of these just came out in 2.5.4. There's a couple here that are interesting. I want to show you the outdoor clients one. So this is one we've demoed multiple times. What's interesting about this one is the update button. This is the button that you can say, I go and fix this for me automatically. Now, the beauty of this is, in Aruba's world, you configure things by groups. This insight isn't looking at groups. This insight is looking at an AP's experience. So there could be multiple APs that have this problem that are configured in different groups. We will go to each different group and set this profile. Again, you don't have to use this. Unfortunately, I can't do this as a demo system, but this takes you to another window that says, here's what you need to do. And in fact, it tells you what you need to do. You need to set the threshold, change the threshold from 0 to 10, right? So this allows people connecting at a dB less than 10. And that, the point of this is it is impacting the least amount of inside users, which it's less than 2%. Right? And they're probably not having a great experience at that level of signal anyway, but it's also excluding the most amount of exterior users. So it's just, again, this is our first one. We did a fairly benign one to do a proof of concept, but we've done this. So you can close this loop. We automatically generate the report after a week after we do the report because we run this weekly. So this is our first closed loop. Yeah.
So a couple of questions. Sometimes we'll see errors that we know are normal, right? And so as we start to pick those up, so like for instance, the coverage hole, right? If the AP is the last AP, let's say as I exit a building, right? As I walk away, it'll, trigger a coverage hole or a coverage hole alert maybe, right? Or just things like that. Do we expect it to kind of learn those things and know, or can we manually, add on to that kind of stuff to like help deal with some of those cases where the workflow triggers alerts, but it's intentional?
Well, so for coverage hole, I'm going to answer you the specific question and talk about it more generally.
Fair.
So for coverage hole, we know, so we have a machine learning model, and we use it here to determine outdoor clients versus indoor clients. And it's a very broad term, but an outdoor client means you're really transient, you're at a weak signal, you're not actually sending data across the network, right? So it's not something you actually care about, right? As a network administrator, you don't really care if somebody is in there walking to the parking lot because they're probably not trying to use it, right? So we use that classifier to determine if it's an outdoor client or an indoor client. We don't trigger that a coverage hole for outdoor clients, right? So we're trying to be smart about this. We're trying to build that intelligence so we don't create these false positives. We're trying to do that across all insights. So again, Aruba's got a lot of expertise. We have a lot of very smart data scientists. We're working together. Like I said, we have these Wi-Fi expertise or these network expertise guardrails around this stuff to say, coverage hole, while interesting, we don't want false positives. So let's put these guardrails around there. Let's figure out how we can make it intelligent.
Obviously, AI is dependent on the data coming in.
Yes.
And in the wireless world, we really care about what's happening on the end client. But to extract that data represents a tremendous amount of overhead on the network. How do you balance that between gathering that data, right, to make your AI more efficient, but not killing your data, your network at the same time by gathering that data?
Yeah, no, so great question. So we gather telemetry from every network device. So telemetry, client information comes from both switches, gateways, and access points, right? So specifically about clients. For the end client.
but not the end client itself.
Not yet. I mean, you'd have to have something on the end client to be able to send that data. So with our UXI has a partnership with Zebra. Hopefully we can leverage that to get end client data, but we don't have an app on a client right now to gather client data. If we did, we could do some amazing things. But that's, getting people to load your client, it's not a trivial thing to do. So we're doing the best we can without having to be invasive. So we're gathering information from each device. We get telemetry from access points, switches, and gateways, send it to the cloud. We do some very smart things, which Ziad's going to talk about clients and stuff here in just a minute. He can talk to you about how we profile that and what we do with that data. And so I think the flip side of that is we also do some very intelligent things. We're gathering a lot of information. We don't want to kill your pipe to the cloud, so we do compression. We do some very smart things to minimize the amount of data upload.
Okay. Well, so just to extend it a little bit, what we're seeing with AX is a need to now schedule the RF, which means that we need to talk to the client. We need to know what his capacity requirements are, what his backlog is, so we can assign resources so it can go over the air. So Wi-Fi is moving in that direction.
Sure.
And that was really the data that I was saying.
Oh, sorry.
Are you starting to see that? Are you starting to use that information to make more intelligent decisions? And what is the impact to performance?
Yeah, so we do collect that data. The AIOps team we have a pretty decent backlog. But yeah, if that data is available, which it is, we can then use that data to figure out how we can optimize this. So we're building a lot of that stuff in. And there may be some specific insights for that we just haven't uncovered yet. I mean, we're still, like I said, our backlog is pretty huge. We want to do what's most impactful. Is that the most impactful thing? I don't know. That's one of the things I need to work on. So I just wanted to show you a couple other things. We've categorized these just to make it a little easier. I wanted to show you one of the new, relatively new switch insight we have. We have a lot of switch insights, but we can look at things like port flaps, and then we can drill down and see what information there is. We can take it down to which switch, which port it is. So again, we're doing something called progressive disclosure. We're trying to, at a very high level, tell you what's important. If you want more detail, you can drill down and get that detail. We're trying to make it easy for you, but we're not trying to overwhelm you with all the information at once, right? Pick what you want, get more information about it. So it seems like we have more clicks to do stuff, but it's actually much more efficient from a UX standpoint. The other one I wanted to show you was we have a few new WAN insights that came out in 254. One of them is using, again, AI modeling, where we're showing, we have a WAN link that is underperforming compared to peers. So we're doing, again, modeling of peers in a region to determine if the same type of WAN link in those peers, if one is significantly underperforming. Now, we can't solve that for you, but you can say, hey, you're getting a much higher latency than your neighbor down the road. You need to call your provider and say, I'm not getting the service that I'm paying for. So again, that's kind of where we're using AI, ML modeling across a region to compare different sites to see how you're doing and compare and see if you need to do something actionable.
Hi all, my name is Ziad, and I'm a product manager on the Aruba Central team as well. I'm super excited to introduce a brand new feature in Aruba Central called Client Insights. So where this comes from is over the past couple of years, we've been talking to customers, and they've been talking to us about how they've gone in and enabled some really large digital transformation journeys, as well as allowing work from anywhere. But one consequence of that has been visibility and security of what IT assets and IoT assets are doing on their network hasn't been up to par as it was before, right? Because essentially every home office is a branch office now. Not many companies have complete visibility as they did as back in the campus. So companies have taken two approaches to fix this need. The first of these is they've deployed dedicated sensors or collectors to pick up network traffic. That approach doesn't scale, especially in a post-COVID world, and it gets expensive really, really quickly. Other companies have tried installing agents, and that has worked to some degree, but most IoT clients, for example, don't support agents. And to Robin's point, get another agent installed on even traditional IT assets is a challenge. With a dedicated solution with a sensor or a collector, one other issue with that is it usually talks to another management appliance. So now we're asking companies to deploy dedicated sensors with a dedicated management appliance with separate licensing, new UI, new user learning. No customers want that anymore. So what we decided to do is something dramatically different. Instead of offering a new sensor or a collector, we thought, what if we took that collector technology that we have from past acquisitions, and we embed that into our own network infrastructure. Embed that into every access point, every switch, every gateway. So that we, without having a separate platform, within Central can offer a solution that gives you really high efficacy of profiling everything on a customer's network, whether it's traditional IoT or obscure IoT, or sorry, traditional IT or obscure IoT, without any traditional collectors. So this is where Client Insights comes in. It's a new feature within Aruba Central. It's gone GA as of November 2021. And every customer globally, and we have 120,000 of those on Central now, every customer globally post November 2021 gets this as part of their Aruba Central subscription. So we do 95% and above profiling through the use of ML models. And we'll talk about those because I'll spend a bulk of my time on a demo today. But one of the big benefits of this solution is since it's a part of Central, not only is it not a new system for you to learn, it means we put this as part of the same subscription licenses that you buy with your AP switches gateways. So every customer that buys a foundation license, which is our base license, gets complete visibility because we believe customers need that complete visibility. Whether they buy a single AP, single switch, single gateway, they get that visibility. Our use of AI and ML, though, isn't restricted to just profiling what's on the network. We go beyond that. Once they authenticate to the network, we monitor what they do on the network. We see if their behavior, specifically IoT, because we've heard from customers loud and clear that IoT are not patched often, they are not supporting highest forms of authentication. That's the biggest blind spot for them right now. So for those specifically, we monitor their behavior, we look for unexpected patterns, flag those patterns, and most importantly, beyond just visibility, we try and create a loop, a closed loop system so you can actually enforce actions on it. We'll show you all of those things in a demo now.
I'm assuming when you said from previous acquisitions, you're talking about like CAPE sensors, you're taking that capability and it'll be in all your access points. At what point is that transition, or is that just a firmware upgrade? There's no hardware changes?
So past acquisitions, so we acquired a company called Niara, which became Introspect, which was our UEBA/network traffic analysis solution. So there's a lot of intelligence. The data science team actually is an extension of that team that works in the solution. Also, we had a standalone product called CPDI, which is primarily just focused on profiling. And you'll see parallels drawn with Client Insights for both of these solutions, both in terms of profiling and then extending that in terms of behavior. So to your second question, how do you enable this feature? We've actually been streaming telemetry from APs and switches forever, right? How much we stream has gone better over time. So to get to the highest forms of telemetry being streamed, we recommend a code base that's about 1.5 years old now, so 8.7 for IAPs. But most customers are already on that code base. So no major changes need to happen. What's changed is we've actually started taking note of this information, consuming this in the same data lake as network insights, so we can correlate this information and drawing real conclusions out of it.
I guess when I have these conversations with my customer, and I show them a screen like this, they're reluctant to say, yes, that's what I'm asking. What they really want to know is not how many iOS devices they have on their network. They want to know how many of those are iPhone 12s running this version of software. Or they don't want to know that I've got 14,000 Windows clients.
Right.
I want to know what version of wireless adapter and then what version of drivers are on that machine. Right. That's actionable. 14,000 Windows clients tells me nothing.
Yeah.
How deep do you go?
So we'll see that. We'll see a demo of how deep we go. But this is also a journey, right? So we've taken some, so in our extent to not put an agent on an endpoint for now, right? There'll be some degree of information that we can get to. For getting driver level information, we have a plan in the future to start talking to major providers like endpoint companies so we can get that information and feed this intelligence there as well. So let me show you what the solution actually looks like and the level of information we gathered today and how we can expand on that in the future. So right now we're looking at an instance of Aruba Central, right? You can see this has many different sites across the globe right now. And if you click on clients, you'll see that we have about 300 odd clients in this instance. There's a good mix of wireless clients as well as wired clients. But if you focus in on the actual clients, and Aruba Central calls endpoints clients, you don't get a lot of information, right? Especially for wired devices, we're just picking up MAC addresses. If you're super lucky, you get a client name, but that can easily be faked, right? This says it's a PC that belongs to Dave. Could be a teapot, I have no idea, right? So this is where Client Insights really kicks in. And post November 2021, a new tab has popped up that lets you profile everything. So that 300 odd clients where we didn't really have a lot of information, firstly gets divided into a list, but even better than that, you can see this in a summary view. So all of a sudden, that 300 odd list starts to make a lot more sense, right? You get to see what's actually on the network. And we'll start drilling into what sort of Windows clients and what versions of those clients in a bit as well. But first, I want to show you, at a high level, I can see I have Windows 10 clients in here. I have iPhones in here as well. I have Aruba AP, so I have a good mix of clients, network devices, and then more towards IoT. I see webcams, I see some medical devices, I see some smart plugs. So one of the things Client Insights does is instead of just blindly profiling them, we come up with something called a system tag. Because imagine for a large corporation, you're talking about tens of thousands of clients. You don't want to go through pages and pages of this, right? So what we do is we come up with something called a system tag. Every client we profile is automatically put into one of these system tags so that you can use this for policy enforcement. So for example, if you want to have a BYOD initiative, you don't want to go and find out every single iPhone, every single Android device. So what you can do is you can click on mobile and gadgets. I already see out of the 300 odd clients, 47 fall into this category. I can click on that, and now I have that visibility. So these tags are automatically created from day zero, so you can use them for policy enforcement.
Is that 30 Apple devices, or is that 15 Apple iOS devices on the left plus, and we're subdividing those 15 as being 11 plus 4?
Oh, you're talking
Apple
about?
iOS device and iPhone.
Yes, so across
Right,
the
I
top,
see what you mean.
15,
Okay.
and then another 15.
So the way it works is, depending on the information we gather, so for example, for these, we've been able to get more information that goes down beyond that it's just an iOS device. Even within an iOS device, it could be an iPad, it could be an iPhone, it could be an iPod. But here we've been able to decipher through its user agent that this is in fact an iPhone, and we get down to which version of an iPhone. In this case, we haven't received that information, and we're working off a more base attribute like a Mac OUI maybe.
Sure, so I guess it presents a chicken and egg problem, right? If somebody says, hey, how many iOS devices do I have?
Mm-hmm.
What's on the screen is 15 iOS devices.
Mm-hmm.
And then another 11 iOS devices, and then another 4 iOS devices, and then another 1 iOS device. So when you classify something as, hey, these are Apple iOS devices, that's not the true answer to a question.
You can
True.
filter. You can
So
just
that's
type
where the
in
filters
Apple,
come
But
and
that's
you
what I'm
get
asking,
it.
right? If I ask, hey, how many Apple iOS devices do I have?
Yeah.
Is my answer going to be 15, or is my answer going to be 31?
Your answer is going to be 31, because in these cases, we've been able to go deeper, and we can tell you accurately that this is an iPhone 8, for example. Same thing for this one. In this case, this, for example, would be a case where in a retail setting, someone's come in and out, where they've barely connected to the network, but haven't interacted long enough to pass a user agent. So in that case, we haven't been able to extract a user agent where we can tell you it's an iOS client, we can't tell you it's an iPhone or an iPad, right? So in this case, we also support something called user tags. And user tags are really fun to create. So you can create a new tag, and you can say that, hey, match anything that has the family Apple. And that'll give you a true count of all the Apple devices on your network. right? So I'll show you more about user tags in a second as well.
Did you say you can distinguish via generation of device?
Yes.
Where is that seen? Because I'm looking at a customer, we got 1,400 Apple devices, but there's no Apple's phones, but I'm trying to see where you can distinguish what, you said iPhone 8 or
Right.
different generations, is that?
So I'll show you. So when we actually get into one of these clients, right? So when we go from a global perspective and actually drill down into some of these clients, I'm going to pick on one of these clients. I'll use one of our sensors to show you what information we actually gather when we say we gather telemetry. So if I click on it, first it takes you to the client details page, and it shows you, importantly, the data path. So you can see this client is connected to our gateway, our SD branch gateway, and a new button's popped up post November 21, and it's called the profile button, and it shows you all the actual telemetry that we gather, right? So here, it starts off with base telemetry, right? First thing we pick up is a MAC address. We pick up its Mac OUI. We pick up its DHCP options. So in an iPhone's case, a DHCP option, or maybe its user agent many times tells us that this is an iPhone 8 or 10. So if you drill down on it, this is the place where you would see this information.
Yeah, but you don't have that in the main page, so there's no way to, how would you say, I want to see all my iPhone 6s or iPhone 7s? Because I have customers like this one who has different generations that they've given out, and so some are used for one thing, and they might want to know, how many iPhone 6s do we still have on the floor? How many iPhone 7s do we have on the floor? And drilling down into each one is not fun, but if we could extract that data and say, show me all the iPhone 6s, that would be more helpful.
That's very good feedback and something we should do. There is a workaround where you could create a tag based on a user agent.
So
that
anything
could
that meets
potentially
this
give you that.
condition.
Exactly. So
give it
you
a- okay.
hit that condition, add that user agent field as well, and then based on that, you can filter it out. But that is something we should have natively in the solution. Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed with Central is that the UI itself, the information it gives you, like on the front end when you're first looking into stuff, I mean, a lot of it's good, but for me, it's like a lot of important information that I easily have like on a controller, or I would have access via the CLI, which is very limited with Central. I have a really hard time really finding an easy way to get the answer. Like, you don't show channels for any APs anywhere in here unless you drill down. I can't have a list of all the channels so I can see, is my channel plan good? Do I have some mismatched APs, wrong channel widths, things like that? There's no CPU utilization. There's no channel utilization. These are all things that when I'm looking at a large network, and we're getting larger networks using Central, it's like, it's difficult to drill down on those specific items. And I'm just wondering why is the UI, why is it so limited on what it presents you from the get-go? I mean, as a company who's been doing wireless for a long time, I mean, you guys know what are the things that matter when wireless engineers are looking at, and I see that missing all throughout the UI. I have to dig down to get information that really should be at the front, or I should be able to customize it and add it to the front, and I can't. And that's kind of frustrating, because, I mean, the thing that you're showing is that you're getting a lot of data, right? The problem is the presentation of the data is obscured by the UI. It's like you really have to go through a lot of work to get to that data, and it should be a lot easier to do. And you guys already do that in your controllers and things like that. And it's in Central, I don't see that being a priority to expose that information in there. I understand part of it is user, is like you don't want to overwhelm the user. But at the same time, if you want this to roll out to larger organizations, they need that, we're going to need that information. And I don't see it present there.
That's a fair comment, but I'll let Seelan take that
I'll
one.
probably take this question. So thank you for the feedback, and this is very useful. What we have shown you is mostly the AI part, and we have multiple blocks in Central that actually tells you where it is. We probably don't have to. We haven't done a great job of summarization, if you will. I think that's where you're coming from, right? So We're looking at improvements on summarization. It's humongous data. At this point of time, what we're relying for our customers, typically we say, is lead from AI search. Search for what you're looking for, and it actually directly comes to,
Well,
it's not
that's
just-
good if you're looking for a specific thing. It's not good if you want to look at things in aggregate. Like, what is my overall channel utilization? What is my, you can't sort by columns. You can sort by 2 columns. Everything else is unsortable. So if I want to look for a specific thing in a controller, I can sort by a column and see everything that's in there. That's if I'm using the UI. But I can also use the CLI, which is even more flexible, which we're very limited on what we can do in Central. So again, my point is, the goal for Aruba going forward, you guys are really pushing cloud. I'm like, if you're pushing cloud, it needs to be equivalent to what we have now with not cloud, right? It can't be less.
Tuned.
Stay tuned, yeah. So it's one of the things we can't share a lot of roadmap, but this is something that we are addressing as we speak. And the next few months, you would see a completely revamped UI.
Eddie, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How much do you care about that information if the system itself is like flagging that that's maybe not the issue? Or do you want to see, you know what I mean? So like.
When the system does that, maybe I'll be fine. Until it does that, I want the information, and I want to
So
be
you
able
can
to
sort
see
for
it.
yourself.
So I can sort it for myself and look at it for myself. Yeah.
Because I could see if it was really good at classifying all that stuff, and it said, like, I've already eliminated this as an option, that channel utilization
Yeah,
whatever is a
yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Then it's okay. Personally, then it's
Yeah,
probably okay if
exactly.
it doesn't show up to some degree. You still probably want to be able to find it sometimes,
Yeah.
for certain things, but.
No, I agree, but there's certain things like that are, again, kind of obscured, and I know it's for the sake of simplicity for the end user, but again, it's fine for a smaller end user, but when you're looking at larger deployments, and we're getting larger deployments out there that are wanting to go to Central, and we're like, okay, and then we want to do a simple thing, like the customer says, well, actually, this is something that's not just unique to Central, but it's like, it says, this says this client is poor, and if he clicks on it and hovers it, it says, 47. What does that mean?
Yeah, so-
What the heck is
So
47?
Central is far from perfect. We understand that, and we've taken it to heart. Like Seelan said, there's something coming.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about it here, but all valid comments.
All right, I want to show you a lot of really cool stuff. I'm going to skip some stuff, but apart from static attributes, we pick up a lot of information because our gateways and our APs have deep packet inspection capability. So we can see what destinations a client reaches out to, the DPI kicks in, and I can see what applications are reaching out. And you can see instead of a list, you can actually visualize this. So this client, for example, over the past 2 weeks, heavily been using Dropbox. You can sort this for the top 20 applications, and you get a really nice representation of it. This is something we've had on our gateways, the DPI piece, for a long time now. What's new is deep packet inspection on our CX switches. So I'm going to show you one more client now, where we're looking at a webcam now. Same flow, we're going to go to the profile. In this case, you'll see that, actually, let me move to summary again to show you that it is connected to one of our CX switches, our 6300 switch. And you'll see that in the profile section, we're picking up more than just its static attributes. We're picking up flow information. We're picking up application IDs, all from a CX switch natively. And what's really, really cool, apart from this network digest that I've been able to show you, is through our introspect IP, we're now putting behavior sciences behind this. So instead of just being able to show you what conversations a client is accessing or going through, we want to be able to show specifically for IoT to start with, which of these you should be worried about. So we baseline behavior for weeks, and we show you that, hey, we've been looking at HTTP sessions for this camera. Dropbox is expected for this camera, but this one application, PayPal, is something that's brand new that's happened for the first time for this endpoint. This automatically in the future is going to create tags. Like we just created user tags, it's going to create an anomalous behavior tag. And this can be used in policy. This can be used in policy like ClearPass. So everything that we do, ClearPass is already integrated with this solution. So if you click on any endpoint in ClearPass, you'll see the tags are flowing in. Click on fingerprints. All those same fingerprints that we were looking at will also start showing up here. And when you start defining services, and I'm going to show you one service real quick, but you'll see that that anomalous behavior tag that we just created can be used by ClearPass to enforce a quarantine profile. ClearPass is just the first policy engine that can use this. NetConductor that we announced this week is going to be another big consumer of this information, as well as CloudAuth. CloudAuth is going to be another feature that we've announced late last year, which is our authentication service built into Central. So that can use all this information and also push policy or authenticate clients at the very least.
Is this foundation license or is it advanced?
The integration's in Foundation.
It's in foundation?
Yeah.
All right. But
So-
and this is now, available now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. So.
On ClearPass or
No,
where do you not see it?
I'm looking in Central at a
In
client,
Central, you
looking
first
at the
need to
network
set it
flow.
up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's at the app selector page, you need to configure a data collector. So once
Gotcha.
you set that connection up, once you set that hook up, then ClearPass and Client Insights immediately start syncing all this information.
Oh, so, and the data collector's in the cloud now, not a hardware appliance?
It's all AP switches, gateways. There is no dedicated
so-
collector.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Oh,
that's
nice.
the big beauty of Client Insights. So you can have users all over the globe, no sensors, right? Anywhere that you have Aruba devices, we will start profiling them.
How far back are you guys going to try to support in terms of the data pool that we can go look at the data?
How far back do we collect this data?
Yeah, and is it accessible? I'll just use an example. I've got customers that do like an annual thing every year, and they like to look at the data like the previous year, current year, right?
Right.
And kind of compare the two, right? So took learnings from last year, applied them for the following year. They want to see the outcomes.
Yeah. So currently our models are based on 2-week sample sets. So we pick up 2 weeks data sets, and it's an evolution. So this feature that I showed you, that tag being created based on an anomalous flow, is a brand new feature that we'll be launching this year. So we'll see how effective that is. If we need to expand that out, we can always do that. But that's a data lake question.
So
yeah.
if you have ClearPass looking at that anomalous behavior and creating something, if you don't have ClearPass, can you apply a tag to something and maybe reassign a role? So we can't do ClearPass, but internally within Central, we can say, give it a quarantine role?
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can use tags, yeah, you can do that. And then with NetConductor, you start seeing some of the policy pieces also coming into Central. Yeah, so you can do it within Central also.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to get back to the question on data, we kind of do a fine balancing act between the data privacy that we actually encounter in some of the regions. So our data enrichment is over 5-7 years, but the active storage of the real PII, not direct PII, special PII, but generic data is about a month. And then what gets filtered out into the algorithms is and then we kind of push it out. It's like a flushing buffer, but when we learn, the learning accumulation is over 5 years, but that's only the outcomes.